Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. Today is my long-awaited ranking of every book I read in 2022. I read 55 books, which honestly for me is a huge achievement. In 2021, I read one book. So we've made massive strides in 2022 and I'm really excited to go through and rate all of these. I do have two videos up on my channel already. One of them is the sort of 4.5 and above books that I read, so you can see what I thought in a bit more depth of my favorite books. And then I do have a video of my 2-star and below reads, so my worst books of the year. But I do have a huge chunk of books in the middle, so it will be really nice to talk about them in this video. I'm probably not going to be going through every book in depth because there are 55, so it would take us a while. I do have a lot of videos on my channel. I have wrap-ups, I have reading vlogs, all that kind of stuff. So if you do want to hear me talk about the books in more depth, I would recommend checking those out because this is just going to be a sort of top level what I think of each one. However, I do very much plan to rank these definitively from the best to the worst book I read this year. I don't know how that's going to go. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but that is the plan for me to rank every single book. You can see all the books that I read down here. They are in chronological order that I read them. So that's my plan, to sort of drop them into the tier categories in the order that I read them and then rank them from there. In terms of the categories that I'm using, we've got my top tier category. My 5 stars is became part of my personality. If you've watched my top reads video, you'll know what that means. My 4 stars are love these because generally I do love 4 stars. My 3 stars is fine. I know that's a really kind of boring name for a category, but that is really how I feel about 3 stars. They were fine. I then have my 2 stars, which is I hate the hating game and other stories. Again, if you've seen my worst reads video, you'll understand. And then my 1 stars is just creepy. I only have one book that goes in there, and that's how I feel about that story. So it felt like an appropriate name for that book. I think that's it. Let's go. I'm going to move myself over to the other side of the screen, so it's going to make it a bit easier for this video. So first up, we have the first book I read this year, which is Jade City by Fonda Lee. I started the year so strong reading this. This is a urban fantasy about 2 clans who compete for ownership of the city that they live in and for control of the substance jade, which enhances martial arts abilities. I've said it so many times before, but this book I think is easy to love, whether you love fantasy or whether you're new to the genre. It's so well written. It's heartbreaking. The Fonda Lee will like kill your favorite characters midway through, but you understand where it's coming from. I cannot recommend it enough. Such a good read, and it was amazing to start off the year as strong as that. So currently Jade City in first place in my became part of my personality category. Next up, we have The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is a romance book. Again, I had a great time at this time of the year. Love Hypothesis, I love. We have Olive and Adam who basically end up in a fake dating relationship when Olive is trying to convince her friend she's over her ex-boyfriend. She kisses the first guy she sees, and that's Adam. And Adam works in the same facility as her. They're both research scientists. It's so good. Olive is so endearing, and I really love this story. Ali Hazelwood has a very unique way of writing, and it's really modern compared to other romances. I don't love everything about Ali Hazelwood, and we'll get there later on, but I really did love The Love Hypothesis. So I'm going to rank it after Jade City because I rated it 4.75 stars because Ali Hazelwood is obsessed with the difference between being small and tall, and it just irritated me so much that I couldn't rate it 5 stars. Next up, we have Serpent and Dove by Shelby Maharin. This is a fantasy romance about Libby and a guy. I think his name begins with an R. And I think that Libby is a witch. This is from much... the other two have really stuck out to me. Serpent and Dove hasn't massively. I'm now realizing I haven't spoken about it for another video or anything. So it's difficult to give you a decent synopsis. It's part of a series though, and some parts of it I thought were weird. I do have a reading vlog of it up on my channel, so you can check that out. I'm going to put it in fine. I rated it 3 stars. I'm pretty sure it's going to be low in fine, to be honest. It really wasn't my favorite, and if I read it in the second half of the year, I think I would have been less generous than I was with it being in the first half, because I didn't have a lot of experience with books then, but I have a lot more now, and I don't think it would have made it as good, but we'll put it in there for now. Then we have Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I also have a reading vlog for this up on my channel. I love this book. It's about Alex and Henry, and Alex is the son of the US president, and Henry is part of the royal family in England. They have a sort of rivalry, but they both need a bit of good PR, so it's encouraged that they publicly agree to be friends, and it becomes more than that. It's so well written, it's so engaging, they are both so lovable. I absolutely love this story. Next up, we have Simmer Down, by Sarah Smith. This is about, I don't remember the characters' names though. It's a romance. It's a food truck romance. We have a couple who are basically competing in this food to own this patch of ground. I read this in one day. It was fine. It was better than Serpent and Dove for me anyway. I mean, a romance is probably always going to score higher than a fantasy romance, but I did enjoy the story. It's just I've read better stories overall. But I did definitely enjoy it. Then we get into my graphic novel era. So we get into Heartstopper. So this is like no question where this goes to me. So I'm sure you've heard of Heartstopper, but if you haven't, it is a graphic novel series about Nick and Charlie, who are at high school in England, at a boys' school. They get put in the same form and they sit next to each other and they hit it off. Charlie is openly gay. Nick is, as he believes, straight, and it's about the two of them discovering their feelings for each other. Charlie deals with major mental health issues, and so he's kind of dealing with some of that. Nick is discovering that maybe he's not as heterosexual as he thought he was. The graphic novel design is so cute. The story is really cozy and heartwarming, but gets harder the further through the series that you go. I absolutely love Heartstopper. I cannot recommend it enough. It's also a series on Netflix, which, to be honest, I would also really recommend. But read the graphic novels if you haven't already. Don't just watch the show. Read the graphic novels. They're so good. They're really easy to pick up, particularly if you're in England. They're in every shop. So I can't recommend them enough. Heartstopper Volume 1 is my favourite. My edition is signed by Alice Oseman because I met her at Yauk, but I don't think anything will ever beat Heartstopper Volume 1 for me. So I do then have the rest of the Heartstopper series. I think, to be honest, my order of them does go Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4. By the time we get to Volume 4, it's a much harder read because of Charlie's mental health is really declining. I love how Nick handles it as someone who suffers from very similar mental health issues to Charlie, but I don't think I find it as cozy as reading the earlier ones. So I think that is my order. So I'll skip straight to Volume 4 there and put it in. They all score higher than anything else. We've already peaked, just to let you know. Next up, we have The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. So it's probably kind of obvious where I'm going to be putting that one. I can't think of the female character's name in this story, but basically the characters are competing for the same role as their publishing houses have joined together. And it's an enemies to lovers, which I realised after reading The Hating Game is very much not my favourite trope. We learned something through reading it. But my main issues, I do talk about it at length in my worst reads video, but my main issues are around the way that nice men are portrayed. I'm not happy about that. And also the way that whatever her name is about Josh is, I think, very problematic. I just think it sends the wrong message to people about the kinds of relationships they should be hoping to get into. So I have real issues with The Hating Game and I talk about it at length in that video. Next up, we have Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. To be honest, I dislike this more than The Hating Game because this book was just disappointing to me. I was just heartbroken more. The Hating Game is very well written as well. Nick and Charlie is a novella, which is part of the Heartstopper universe, about Nick and Charlie and Nick going to university and both of them not really coping that well with that. And I just didn't like the way that the two of them behaved in this story. It was a lot of angst. It was a lot of anger. It didn't have any of the like cuddly, cute, warm feelings that Heartstopper has. I missed the graphic novel format. It just didn't feel part of the universe as I know it, and I didn't feel, and I know Alice Oseman knows her characters better than me, but I just didn't feel this was the way that they would have behaved in this situation, and I just would rather that my Heartstopper universe exists without this novella. So unfortunately, that is a pretty low rating for me. Next up, we have Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade, which is a romance about, I can't think of the character's name. Whenever I watch these videos, I think, how do they not remember all the characters' names? No, it turns out it's quite difficult when you've read this many books. But basically, we have a curvy main character who writes fan fiction about her favourite actor who's in a show kind of similar to Game of Thrones. And it ends up being publicly shamed on Twitter for being curvy. And so the actor, who also writes fan fiction, ends up agreeing to go on a date with her as a kind of, I guess, a little bit of like feeling a bit sorry for you, but you're attractive, but I'm trying to sort of save your image kind of thing. And then they end up having feelings for each other. And the idea of this is so something I would love. But unfortunately, I think the execution of this just didn't quite work for me. The pacing didn't quite work. And the writing of the steamy scenes is very old school, and some of the wording I just felt like a little bit uncomfortable with. So unfortunately, I didn't love this one. Also, I much prefer the US cover. I feel like in the UK cover, they've really toned down that she is supposed to be fat, and I think that the UK cover doesn't display that, so I'm not very happy with the UK cover. In terms of where I would rank it, so I'm pretty sure I ranked it 3 stars. Did I enjoy it less than Serpent and Dove? Probably not. Serpent and Dove was like, on reflection, like if I had to pick one of them to reread, I think I would reread Spoiler Alert rather than Serpent and Dove. So I think I'm going to rate it higher. Next up, we have The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss. This is a sort of retelling or a story that's about the like daughters of Frankenstein and Jekyll and Hyde and things like that. And I read it around the time that I was performing in the musical Jekyll and Hyde, which it was the perfect thing to read at that time. The story is interesting. The writing style, you have the characters in the modern day looking back, and it didn't work for me as well as I hoped it would, but I did enjoy it. It's just, I don't know how I feel about carrying on the series necessarily. I think, though, I am going to rate it higher than Spoiler Alert, because I think I did enjoy it. I don't know that I enjoyed it more than Simmer Down. Like, I think I would pick up Simmer Down to reread over Strange Case, but it was enjoyable. The writing style didn't quite work for me, which was unfortunate because I wanted to love it more. Okay, we're very much in my graphic novel era now because I realized after reading Heartstopper that I absolutely loved graphic novels. So first up, we have Chef's Kiss, which is a cute graphic novel. It kind of has Heartstopper vibes in that we have a guy who is sort of very kind of endearing in a similar way to Charlie, who meets somebody while he's working. You know, it's kind of similar. I did not enjoy it nearly as much as Heartstopper, though, because the pacing is just not quite right in this story. I needed more slow burn between Ben, I think his name is Ben, and is it Levi? The guy that he fancies at the kitchen where they work. There's also this weird part with a pig that I just didn't really get or understand. But the artwork is beautiful, and I do feel it's a really accurate representation of what it's like finishing university with an English degree. So I liked that element of it, definitely. I think I would rate it highest of all of these, because graphic novels are probably always going to rate higher for me because I'm just in awe of the artwork. And it was enjoyable. It's just, it's not my favorite compared to some other stories, but I would definitely recommend reading it. Next up, we have Bloom. My first loved these. So Bloom is really Heartstopper vibes. We have Ari, who is from a Greek family. They run a Greek bakery, but he really doesn't like being part of the bakery. He wants to be a musician, but the bakery is really struggling. And so his dad says he needs to keep working there. He says, if I can find somebody who can cover my shifts at the bakery, can I go be a musician? He finds somebody whose name I can't remember, but he finds this guy to help cover, and then ends up discovering his love for the bakery with this guy. The artwork in this is unbelievably gorgeous. It's the color scheme is as it is on the cover. It's like blues and turquoises and white. It's so gorgeous, so unbelievably gorgeous. I'm so excited for Bloom Part 2, which is, I'm pretty sure, coming out in 2023. The reason I didn't rate it 5 stars is because there is some unnecessary drama in Act 3, which I just felt like didn't need to be there. I like my graphic novels a bit more cozy than this particular drama, but it's so beautiful and I would really, really recommend reading it. Next up, we have City of Dragons, which is another graphic novel, which is about a student who discovers a dragon and her and her friends like look after the dragon, and the artwork in this is so gorgeous. If you like dragon artwork, you will probably like City of Dragons. It's so beautifully drawn. It's full of color and vibrant. It's absolutely gorgeous. And The story is really good. It's a first in a series, so I'm really excited to see where it goes. It is kind of fantasy elements. There's like a backstory with her stepdad and what's happened to her dad who's passed away. You're sort of discovering more about that story. It's quite like a emotional read, but it's so good. I think I'm gonna rate it the top of 3. I think I rated it like 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and so I'm really excited to read the second part. So I think that's where I would put that one. Next up, we have Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. This is a romance about Preem and Karina. And it's an enemies to lovers, but nowhere near as much as Hating Game. But there is an element of enemies to lovers in this story, which is not my favorite trope, as I've mentioned before. And I really wanted to love this more because I love reading books about other cultures, and it did help introduce me to sort of elements of like arranged marriage and how that works. But I just felt the pacing didn't quite work for me. You know, from the beginning, they're really into each other. And so you're kind of wondering why there's so much restraint about it. And I just felt like I'm not sure I 100% believe these two characters would have ended up together. There's quite a lot of drama around the TV show that Prem is in charge of and stuff like that. So I wish I loved this more. Unfortunately, I didn't. But I did rate it like 2.5, 2.75 stars. And so the top of that category is definitely where it sits. Next up, we have Giant Days, which is a graphic novel about some British students at university. And I wanted to love this so much more than I did because a lot of people had said, like a load of people had recommended it on BookTube. I think my issue with Giant Days is that it just loses its way a little bit for me. There's these sort of scenes that I'm just like, what is happening? And maybe I didn't have that kind of, well, I didn't have the kind of university experience that these students have, but it almost felt like I was outside the club a little bit. I didn't totally understand what was happening. So it's unfortunate because it's quite a long series and the art, again, is beautiful, but it wasn't for me. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to carry on with this series because I just think it's lost its way too much. And I think people have said that it loses its way even more later in the series, like by like 5 or something. And I thought, if I think it's lost its way in 1 and 2, it's probably not for me. On the flip side, though, we have Fence. So Fence is a graphic novel series about a group of students who are at a professional fencing school. It's such Heartstopper vibes. If you love Heartstopper, I think you'll love Fence. Again, the art is gorgeous, and it's this fascinating, like, you learn so much about fencing, which is not something I ever thought I would find interesting, but I really do. I love Fence. It's so good. And it's the way that the students are with each other is just adorable, and you're sort of learning more about their relationships and them having feelings for each other and how they navigate that. It's so unbelievably cute. So I'm pretty sure I rated Fence Volume 1 5 stars. So these two are under 5 stars. So I guess it's going to have to go here. I don't think I liked it more than Jade City. So I think that's probably a good place for it. Next up, we have The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. This is a romance about somebody who has autism and is struggling with the idea of getting into a relationship and having sex. And so she hires an escort to help teach her how to have sex, basically. And I thought it was fine. That's why it's in this category. I thought it was fine. I am going to read the rest of the books in the series. I think I would like to see where the other two are like intertwined into this one. And so I would like to see where it goes. But it wasn't my favorite story. Michael, the escort, has like so much backstory and it's like quite heavy going at times. Though apparently book 3 in this series is very heavy going. So I have to mentally prepare myself for that. Where would I rate it here? I would probably rate it maybe higher than The Strangest Case, because I don't know if I'm going to carry on that series, but I am willing to carry on the Kiss Quotient series. So that's probably right, although I feel like I probably enjoyed Strange Case more, and that is interesting thought process for me, that maybe I should be carrying on with the Strange Case series. Okay, this was useful. So then we have Fence Volume 2 and Fence Volume 3. I'm going to rate these two maybe lower than, I think I rated this one like 3.5 stars, Fence Volume 3, so maybe that should sit at the top of fine. Volume 2, I can't remember what I rated. It's like hard to differentiate because they're quite short. It's hard to differentiate between them. But I did obviously still enjoy them. I just think these two I did really enjoy, and I don't want to necessarily rate them all in a row. So I think I'm probably happy with that. I'm not going to talk about those ones specifically because that's just part of the series. Okay, so next up we have Giant Days Part 2, which I enjoyed less than Giant Days Part 1. So I think we'll put those there. I'm trying to decide if I enjoyed Giant Days 1 more than Serpent and Dove, though, which I think I probably did. So let's do a little swap around there. Okay, next up we have Legends and Lattes by Travis, last name beginning with a B, I can't think of because it's been cut off here. But this is the book that took BookTube by storm this year. It's a cozy slice of life fantasy, but it's a low stakes fantasy. We have the main character, Viv, who is opening a coffee shop in a village, and it's about the opening of the coffee shop and her meeting the characters in her new home. There's a little bit of fighting that happens, but it is very low stakes. It's really enjoyable. I started off with the audiobook, which is read by the author because he is an audiobook narrator normally. That was not for me, unfortunately. I just couldn't get on board with his voice. I don't think I've got very into audiobooks now, but it wasn't the format for me. I then bought the book, I started again, I read it from the top, and that was definitely how it was best for me to read it. I was able to enjoy it a lot more then, and I did definitely enjoy it. It's not like my favourite book of the year like it is for some people, but I did really enjoy it, and I think I would love to reread it at some point as well. Then we have My Mechanical Romance by Alexis Farron Falmouth, and this is a YA about two students, Belle and Teo. So Belle is new to school and she is encouraged by her teacher to get involved in the robotics club to advance her physics knowledge because it turns out she's really good at it. She just doesn't believe in herself. And there she meets Teo, who is the most popular guy in school, is good at everything. He's good at sport, he's good at class, but he struggles with his own battles with perfectionism, and it's about the two of them discovering their feelings for each other, but also about him learning to accept that somebody else can also be good at something. It's about Belle learning to be a woman in STEM and how to own that. It's such a good book. I go on massive rants about it in other videos on my channel. I absolutely loved it. It felt like a story for me. I loved it a lot. And I think I did enjoy it more than Jade City because I felt so enraptured by it. And that's maybe a little bit controversial because I'm a 30-year-old reading YA about 17-year-olds, but I did really enjoy it. Next up, we have Delilah Green Doesn't Care, which is by Ashley Herring Blake. This is a sapphic romance about Delilah and... what is her name? What is her love interest name? I can't think of her name. But it's basically... Delilah has a complicated history with the town of Bright Falls. I think that's what it's called. And she ends up having to go back because her stepsister Astrid is getting married and she is going to be the photographer for the wedding. And it's about her dealing with some stuff that she'd kind of put aside in the past. She's been a bit of a tearaway because of what's been going on in her life. And it's about her discovering her relationship with the person whose name I cannot remember, who I love. She was the character that I really enjoyed. Everyone else loves Delilah, I think, but I loved the other character. I just think she was such a good mom and she was really dealing with things I think I could very much understand with. I rated this 3.5 stars. I'm really interested to read Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail, which is the second book in this series, which I do own and is one of the books I most want to read in 2023. I think this is going to be the top of this category because it was kind of borderline as to whether I would rate it higher. It took me quite a long time to get through, unfortunately, but I did really enjoy it. Next up, we have Love and Other Great Expectations by Becky Dean. I rated this 3.5 stars at the time, but I think it's a 4-star for me. This is a YA about Brit who... she has broken her leg. She's really kind of lost her way. She's a sports person and she has no drive in life now that she's broken her leg. And she, or injured it anyway. And her teacher sends her and some classmates on a treasure hunt through England. The story premise is a bit weird, but go with it. And she meets this guy while she's over there, this British guy who she ends up in a relationship with. It's a really cute story. To be honest, I just really enjoyed it. I have a reading vlog of it up on my channel. I really enjoyed it. It was very Mary-Kate and Ashley, if you were a Mary-Kate and Ashley fan when you were growing up. It really reminded me of those stories. I really enjoyed it. It was a very easy read. There were a few pacing issues, particularly around the end. It wrapped up a little bit too quickly for me, but honestly, I did really enjoy it. Okay, next up we have Yumi and Our Heartstrings by Melissa C, which is a YA story about Daisy and Noah. And Daisy has cerebral palsy. Noah has really bad mental health. They're both trying to get to Juilliard. They go to a music school. They end up playing a song which goes viral. And the very last third of the story is about them dealing with that. But that's what the blurb says the whole story is about. And it really isn't. I think this book it wasn't for me. It just needed a bit more editing. It needed some pacing rewrites to work for me. But I can see that there is definitely an audience for this story. I loved the disabled rep in this, and I loved the elements of the like diversity in New York City really came through in this story, which I loved. I'm very borderline as to whether it's a 3 or a 2.5, but I didn't hate this book or dislike this book, because I didn't hate Dr. Dill. I didn't dislike this book, and so I'm going to put it at the bottom of fine, because I think that's like fair enough to where it sits. Then we have The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren, which is I don't know where to put this, which is a romance story about, I can't think of her name, but I'm actually quite shocked by how little I remember about some of these. I really should have like read through all my reviews before filming this. But the character that we follow is put forward. River is the guy's name. River. She is basically puts in her DNA to an app where they believe that they can match you based on your DNA, like a dating app. And she ends up getting matched with River, who's the owner of the app, and they agree to fake date. River wants to sort of prove that the app is working, so they kind of agree to fake date. It's really well written. It's very engaging. I loved the story. I loved the backstory of each of the characters. You learn a lot about their lives. The mum is a single mum with amazing friends. Her friend's called Fliss, like an amazing best friend, amazing grandparents. She has a complicated history with her mum. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. It's really stayed with me, apart from her name. It's really stayed with me since I read it. I probably enjoyed Bloom more though, I think. But I really enjoyed Soulmate Equation. Okay, then we have It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. So this is it's a kind of Schitt's Creek retelling. I've not watched Schitt's Creek, but it's about Piper and what's the guy's name? I don't remember, but Piper and her sister Hannah move to this small fishing town, and Brendan, and they're like really rich and spoiled, and their dad like cuts them off. Their stepdad, I think. Their stepdad cuts them off and sends them to the fishing town where their dad lived, and it's about them adjusting to life there. And Brendan, it's a kind of like grumpy sunshine trope in this one. I don't think I should have enjoyed this book as much as I did, but I really did. I love Tessa Bailey's writing. The steamy scenes are the steamiest of scenes that I've read, and Piper becomes really likable by the end of the story. I don't quite like the way that Brendan talks to Piper is a little bit off-putting at times. It's a bit sort of she's a helpless woman kind of thing. I don't think I should have enjoyed this book, but I actually really did enjoy this book. So it's a pretty high rating from me. I don't think I should have done, but that's where we are. I really did have a good time reading it. So we will carry on. I then went straight into Hook, Line and Sinker by Tessa Bailey, which is the sequel. And Hook, Line and Sinker is about Hannah and Fox, and it's like a friends to lovers relationship. And Fox is a serial dater, and Hannah can see past that and loves him anyway. Hannah is really likable. I don't know. I love this story. I'm kind of sad there's only 2 in the series. I'm really excited to read more by Tessa Bailey. I think she is a good fit for me. So I rated it 4.5 stars originally, and then I brought that down to 4 because I think I was trying to like it more than It Happened One Summer, and I'm not entirely convinced that I did or didn't, but I think I'm happy with where I've put it there, between like Bloom and Soulmate Equation. Then we have Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter, which is about a girl called Liv who she is very unlucky in life generally, and she like sets her apartment on fire, and she ends up having to move in with her brother, who lives with his best friend. She has a kind of like enemies to lovers. It's not really enemies, but kind of hate to love relationship with the friend's brother. And that's basically what it's about. But she's texting a wrong number, which ends up being him, or the other way around. So it was fine. It was like a good time while I read it. I just wouldn't reread it. Where would I put it though? I think I would reread it over The Kiss Quotient, you know? Would I reread it over Strange Case? Like, Livy was annoying. She was younger than I am, and she was difficult to read from that respect, because I was just like, Livy, grow up. So maybe I would, maybe here, maybe there. This is quite hard with the 3 stars. Okay, then we have Beach Read by Emily Henry, which is a story about January and Gus. They are both writers, and they end up writing in the same town. It's so hard to talk about because the marketing of this book is so wrong. The cover, the UK cover especially, makes it look like such a rom-com. It literally says a rom-com waiting to happen. It's not funny. It's heartbreaking. The representation of Gus's mental health issues are just so well done. I sobbed the whole way through this book. It's so good, though. I really, really enjoyed it. It's not a romance, though. I would consider it a contemporary story, because there is obviously romance and steam and stuff, but it is like very hard to read. What I am trying to decide though is if I enjoyed it more than Jade City, which I don't think I did. I think that it's very good, but I think that overall I preferred Jade City. So I'm also now debating if Jade City should go higher than My Mechanical Romance, but I don't know yet. So next we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry, which is the one that everyone loves. It's the one that everyone loves. It's about Nora, and is his name Alex? Nora is a shark book agent, and she is kind of unlucky in romance because she's sort of deemed too difficult a personality, and then she goes to this town with her sister. It's a town based, like one of her authors has like written a book based on the town, and they go there for a holiday, and then she kind of keeps running into the guy. Again, it's not actually about that. The way you describe them makes them sound so offhand, but they're not offhand. They're like very difficult reads. The characters have very difficult backstories. They are like very upsetting in many ways. So I rated this one 4 stars. I read it right after Beach Read, which was a mistake. You should not binge Emily Henry. And so I think I didn't enjoy it as much for that reason. I think I'm going to rate it above Love and Other Great Expectations, because ultimately I did rate it 4 stars, but I think I enjoyed it less than Legends and Lattes. So I think that's probably about right. Then we have Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood, which is the release that came out this year from Ali, and it's basically the Love Hypothesis retold in a different science setting. We're at NASA this time instead of like STEM research. My issue, I talk about it in my worst video. I won't kind of get back into it, but basically my frustrations are that this story is very similar. We still get a lot of I'm small, he's tall and big, which I'm really starting to find problematic in romances. The way that B talks about nice guys, I just don't think B is particularly likable. Levi was fine, but B I just didn't find likable, and it wasn't for me. So did I like it less than Nick and John? I think I rated it like 2.5 stars though, so it probably goes there. Did I enjoy it more or less than Dating Dr. Dill? They're like very much on par, I think. Like I really wouldn't pick to reread either of them. I don't think. I don't know which one I preferred though. Like I would probably reread Love on the Brain over Dating Dr. Dill, because I would want to give it another chance, so I guess there. Then we have Cheat Sheet by, I can't think of the author's name, Sarah something, I think, which is a friends to lovers romance. We have a dancer and a professional football player. The professional football player is just the nicest guy on the planet, and he really looks after the dancer friend. I can't think of their names. He really likes the dancer friend and really supports her, and that's very cute. It's a very cute story. At the moment, it's in my unhaul pile, but to be honest, I did really enjoy it. I think I would rate it at the top of this category. The steamy scenes are not there because the author doesn't like writing them, but that's totally fine. They're really cute. It's just a bit repetitive, and you get both perspectives in the story, so you want to like bash their heads together and be like, "You are meant to be together." But the whole premise of this story is like very cute. So, yeah, I think it fits right in that category. Next up, we have Summer at the Castle Cafe by Donna Ashcroft, which is a kind of British village romance about someone whose name I don't remember, and she moves there after her mum dies, and it's about her kind of settling into the town and meeting this guy called Jay. The writing, I almost think this is lower than The Hating Game, because The Hating Game, for its faults, is very well written, whereas Summer at the Castle Cafe, I just didn't get on with Donna Ashcroft's writing style, and I don't think I would pick up anything else by her. It just didn't work for me. This is a well-rated book on Goodreads, I should say, so I think, unfortunately, it just wasn't for me. And again, I talk about it in the other video. We then have The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, which I picked up because I really like Christina Lauren. I loved The Soulmate Equation. This story is about two people who, the female character's sister she basically like clips coupons for as like her main hobby, and she gets her wedding entirely as clipped coupons for free kind of thing, or like wins the wedding, but they get food poisoning the day before the wedding, and so the wedding can't go ahead. No, the wedding goes ahead. They get food poisoning at the wedding, but the honeymoon can't go ahead because the bride and groom get sick. And so the sister and the best man go on the honeymoon instead, and they have to pretend to be in a relationship because it's a non-refundable honeymoon in the sister's name. And there's some very convenient things that happen on the honeymoon where they run into people from their lives, so they have to pretend to be together and fake date and stuff. And it just there was like quite a convoluted story. There was quite a lot of elements to it, and I just didn't unfortunately enjoy it as much as I did other books, really. So, would I rate it higher than Giant Days? No, I don't think I did. I really was like quite disappointed in this one. Would I rate it higher than Serpent and Dove? You know what? I'm not sure I would. So, but higher than Giant Days 2 is probably correct. Next up, we have Lore Olympus, Volume 1 by Rachel Smythe. This is a graphic novel series about, it's basically a Hades and Persephone retelling, and it's kind of set in the modern era. It's really beautiful. It's really well done. The artwork is stunning. The books are hardbacks, and you can read it as a webcomic as well, but the physical copy is such a beautiful read. It's gorgeous. Really recommend it. And it's very steamy. It's very adult. I think I rated it 4 stars. I think I would rate it higher than Legends and Lattes for me, but probably less than It Happened One Summer, you know? Next up we have I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, which is the memoir by Jeanette McCurdy, who is in iCarly. She's Sam in iCarly and Sam in Sam and Cat. It's hard to encourage you to read it because it's so difficult to read. She is so brutally honest about her life, her challenges with abuse, both mental and physical, about her eating disorders, about how she really didn't want to be a child actress and did it just for her mum. It is such a heartbreaking read. I listened to it on audio, and I really recommend it on audio because it's read by Jeanette McCurdy. It's weird to say it's good, but it's the book of all of these books, other than maybe Jade City, that I've recommended to the most people. So I would really recommend it, even though it's a very challenging book to read. Next up, we have Crumbs, which is a graphic novel about a witch who she falls in love with a musician, but she works for the council, and it's about her trying to work her way up through the council whilst questioning some of what the council does and dealing with her relationship with Laurie. It's very cute. The art is beautiful, but I just didn't love it as much as I expected to. But I mean, I would say it's like the top of this category though. Like I would 100% reread it. The art was stunning, and it had these really cute little characters that like popped up out of their phones. Like it had really cute ideas. It just, for a very chunky graphic novel, because it's very big, it was a bit underexplored, and I just would have liked it to go further than it did. Next up, we have Mooncakes, which is another graphic novel. I was very much in my graphic novel era here. Mooncakes is, again, a witchy graphic novel. I was reading these around Halloween, about Nora, who is a witch. She lives with her grandmothers, and her childhood friend Tam comes back to the village. There's basically something magical afoot, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to overcome that, but also they are rediscovering feelings that they have for each other. So it is Tam is uses they them pronouns, and Nora is deaf. The representation in this is really good. The artwork is unbelievably gorgeous. It's just the pacing doesn't quite work for me. The relationship between Nora and Tam moves very, very quickly, and so you're kind of, you want a bit more will they won't they, and so I kind of rate it in that same category as Crumbs, that like absolutely gorgeous, would 100% reread, just needed like a little bit of reworking of the story. Next we have Murder at the House on the Hill by Victoria Walters. So this was my first cozy mystery of the year. This is the big genre that I think is like really taken over BookTube. And Victoria is someone that I have interacted with before when on my other YouTube channel, on my planning channel. She's just a generally lovely person, but she is an author as well. And so she has a series of murder mysteries which are set in Deadly End. And it's about Nancy and her grandmother Jane, who run a mystery-only bookshop. They find themselves caught up in their own mystery. And so it's about them kind of navigating like how they handle the mystery and learning more about the town and stuff. They are like, I really love the idea of these stories. I think it was just because it was my first cozy mystery, I was sort of trying to settle into the genre of like, they fight the police sometimes unnecessarily, and that I was just like, why are we doing that? And you know, that kind of thing. But I did really enjoy it. I think probably I would put it around here, maybe here. I did enjoy it, and I've got a lot more like into the genre now. I'll also put in Murder at the Summer Fete, which is the sequel. The sequel I did enjoy less, but I know I'm going to enjoy the third one more because we're back to the story from the first one. So I think I would probably put Summer Fate maybe here, maybe here. But like I say, the second one, we go down a different story track. It's like quite different to the first book. But at the end of the second one, you learn things that lead back into the first one. I was like, I need to know what happens. So I like that we're linking back. It's very similar to a book series I'll talk about later on, which is the Agatha Raisin book series. It takes inspiration from that, of like all of the books are linked, so you do kind of need to read them in order. Next up, we have One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle, which is my one star of the year, which is just, it is the creepy category. This is about Katie, who her mother has passed away, and in order to be close to her again, she goes on the holiday they were supposed to go on before she passed away. She goes back in time and she meets her mum 30 years ago, and it's about her learning about who her mum was, not as a parent. She's like creepily obsessed with her mum in a way that is just odd. And I listened to this on audiobook, and Lauren Graham, who is Lorelai in Gilmore Girls, is the audiobook narrator, because I think it's supposed to give you Gilmore Girls vibes. I don't like Lauren Graham as an audiobook narrator, and this doesn't give Gilmore Girl vibes. And I feel I can say that as someone who's watched Gilmore Girls all the way through like 60 times. So I just really didn't enjoy this. I persevered because I didn't want a DNF, because I wanted to like get it on my reads of the year, but just, you know, we are where we are, unfortunately. And then we have The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling, which is like the absolute opposite ends of the spectrum here. So The Ex-Hex is, I would put The Ex-Hex somewhere up here. I would probably put it here. So The Ex-Hex is a fantasy romance, but not like Serpent and Dove or ACOTAR. It's like, I think it's more of a romance first and a fantasy second. And Vivi and Reese meet when they're 19. They hit it off straight away. They have this like really electric summer together. And then Reese leaves her, and Vivi is so distraught, she gets drunk and she curses him. And then 9 years later, he comes back to the town, and it's evident that the curse kind of did work, not as Vivi expected, but kind of did work. And so they need to work together to overcome the curse whilst kind of restarting their feelings for each other. I really did not expect to love it. I absolutely loved it. Erin Sterling is an excellent writer. It's such an enjoyable series. It's such an enjoyable book. I'm really excited to read the second one next Halloween. I loved it. It was really good. I really recommend it. And I think About There is right. I rated it 5 stars and then had to like tore myself down. So I think About There is right. So then we have The Quiche of Death, which is the first in the Agatha Raisin series by MC Beaton. I'm listening to these on audio. They are very easy audiobook listens. They're about 6 hours long, and I listen to audiobooks on my commute, so I need something I can pick up and drop very easily, which I can, even though this is a murder mystery. I feel like this absolutely fits into that cozy mystery genre. These were maybe even the original cozy mysteries. Agatha is not entirely likable. She is, in fact, she isn't likable particularly, but that almost makes her likable. It's very real, and the town is really interesting. You have a lot of characters. They started being written in 1992, and so they are very of the time. Like, just to give you that caveat, that there are some things in there which I do find a bit problematic, but overall, like, they are a very easy listen, and I'm enjoying them. So I feel like probably around there is right. Because this is an enjoyable, maybe even a little bit higher, to be honest. They are enjoyable, and I think the first one is better than the later ones. I'm on the third one now. I haven't finished it, but the first one is better. Then we have The Cozy Cottage in Ireland by Judy Kaplan, and this one is about Hannah, who goes to Ireland on a whim to escape her boring life, and she meets a guy called Connor who is being stalked by this girl, so she kisses him so that the girl will leave him alone. They have a one-night stand, which she escapes the day after. She then goes to this cooking school where, of course, Connor is the son of the chef who's running the cooking school. The premise of this is so me. Whenever I read the blurb, I love it. I'm like, yeah, this is so my sort of story. But similar to Donna Ashcroft, I just didn't get on with Judy Kaplan's writing style. And I felt like the way she spoke about sort of England Hannah versus Ireland Hannah, I felt like England Hannah was being really spoken down about, and I just didn't love that. So unfortunately, that's where this sits. Although I think I would reread this over at least Dr. Dill. So maybe that is right, which is, I only rated it 2 stars, but maybe it is a 2.5, because I do think I would reread it. So we'll go with it there, like if I kind of had to. Then we have The Upside of Falling, which is by Alex Light, which is a YA. It was a Wattpad, and it's a really cute story about, is it Becca, I think. Becca and Brett. And Becca doesn't have a lot of friends. She's sort of really struggling to adjust to life at school, and an ex-best friend questions her on the fact that she's never had a boyfriend. I think she gets on like a rant in English class about love, and this friend is like, well, you've never had a boyfriend, and then Brett steps in and is like, I'm her boyfriend, and they agree to fake date because they both have things they could gain from fake dating, and things progress from there. It's so unbelievably cute. It's such a cute story. I really enjoyed it, and it's very well written, and just really, there was a little bit of unnecessary drama at the end, but like, that's a YA, so there's always a bit of unnecessary drama, but like, I really enjoyed it. Then we have Love in Winter Wonderland by Abiola Bello, which I wanted to love. I really, really, really wanted to love it, but unfortunately, I think it was just, I like reading American YAs, but UK YAs are like too close to my college or sixth form experience for me to necessarily enjoy them as much. And so I just found this one harder to get on board with. But I think I would rate it probably here. Like, it was still enjoyable. There is so an audience for that book. I think a UK young person would get a lot from it, although there are definitely elements where it links back to like Twilight and stuff like that, which is from my childhood. So it's a little bit confusing in that respect of kind of who the target audience is, but I don't think it's 30-year-olds reading YA. I think it is YAs, but it has a lot of like representation for Black people and for Black artists and Black movements, and I really love that part of it. It's just, it felt too close to my sixth form experience, and I wasn't expecting to read that and didn't particularly want to read that, and so unfortunately it wasn't for me. But I really do think there is an audience for that book. We're getting so close to the end, 5 books. So next up we have Jade War, which is the sequel to Jade City by Fonda Lee. I'm not really going to talk about this one because it's in the same universe as Jade City. I loved it as much as Jade City. I think I love Jade City more, but I did still really love Jade War. It took me most of the year to read, but that's because I was just really enjoying it. I didn't want to read it quickly. I'm very excited to read Jade Legacy, see what I think. But yeah, did really enjoy Jade War. Then we have MC Beaton and the Vicious Vet, which is the second book. I really did not enjoy this one as much as the first one. was more elements in it that I found, to be honest, racist, and of the time does not make it okay, but it is of the time. That's a really unfortunate thing, but I just didn't enjoy that one as much. Then we have Boyfriend Material, which is by Alexis Hall, and I love this book. It's so good. It's basically is that that's tricky. Okay, so we have Luke and Oliver, and Luke reminds me a lot of Charlie in Heartstopper, and Oliver reminds me of Nick. It's just kind of them a bit more grown up. And Luke is really struggling with his public image. He's acting out against the fact that his dad, who left him when he was a kid, is now a sort of comeback celebrity. And Luke works for a charity. He needs to improve his image because a lot of the donors are refusing to come to this big charity drive that they have. And so his friend sets him up on a date with Oliver, who is very kind of respectable and is supposed to sort of raise Luke's image. But you're learning about Oliver and his own kind of mental health issues. It's so well written. It's really funny. I laughed out loud so much in this story. I just really enjoyed it. And I'm trying to decide... it's really difficult in the top parts of this as to where this sits. Did I like Boyfriend Material more than... It's hard because I read this more recently, so it's kind of hard to know. I feel like the top ones, they're all kind of interchangeable, which is not what you want to hear. Then we have The Merry Christmas Project by Kathy Bramley, which is a cute story about Mary, who is... She ends up agreeing to help with the Christmas project in town, and she meets this guy, Cole, while she's doing that, who also lives in the town, and he's trying to build a house for when his kids return from America. It's really cute. It was a good time. So to be honest, I enjoyed this. Maybe here. Okay, that's high praise for The Merry Christmas Project. It was enjoyable. Again, I read it more recently, so it's kind of hard to know whether I'm being objective or not. Then we have the last book I read, which is The Christmas Wedding Guest, which was my blind date with a Christmas book vlog, so you can check that out on my channel if you want to. To be honest, I enjoyed that. Did I enjoy it more than The Merry Christmas Project? No, probably not. But it was a really enjoyable story about two sisters. There was so much backstory about them and the guys that they were getting with. It's just a really cute, very Hallmarky style story. Very enjoyable. So that, I think, is my ranking. I'm fine with everything other than the top, where I'm just not sure, because it's hard to rank fantasies against romances, realistically. I just don't know. I was so passionate about My Mechanical Romance when it came out. My Goodreads rant is so over the top about this. So I feel like it probably should be that high. But that feels very high. To rate that over Jade City, which is a completely different kind of story. How do you all rank these? I don't like ranking things. I don't know how I sit with this. I also am trying to decide if I think Vents Volume 1, I don't think I enjoyed it as much as either of those. So I think that's probably a better fit. But I think I rated Fence 5 stars, so I maybe need to reevaluate that. Oh, it's so tricky. And also, I read My Mechanical Romance. I read Boyfriend Material very recently. Do you know what? I do think that's maybe right. It's a tricky one. And I just keep moving it around. Let's maybe go with that. These are just such different kinds of stories. I'm just going to leave it at that. But know that they're all kind of interchangeable around that bit. That is my definitive ranking of my 2022 reads. Wow. I predominantly read 3 stars, right? This is by far the chunkiest. But I think it's because 3 stars for me is this huge category of books that were fine, but there's a huge range from books I really enjoyed and books I enjoyed less within the 3-star range. So, you know, I feel okay with this, I think. But yeah, that is everything for this video. I really hope you enjoyed. Let me know down below, what was your best and worst book of 2022? I would love to hear. Also, if you think that there's anything based on the stuff I read in 2022 that you think I would love, please let me know, because I would love to add even more books to my TBR. I'm always looking for new stories to read. I'm so excited for 2023. I will at some point put a video up about my plans for 2023 and stuff I want to read and things like that, and my kind of summary of my 2022 reads. I think I plan to do that video, but if not, I do have a video already up on my channel, which is books I want to prioritize in 2023 from my physical TBR, so do make sure that you check that out. If you did enjoy this video, I would massively appreciate a like. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would subscribe. I will have links down below to my Goodreads where you can read my in-depth reviews of each of these stories. I'm very good with my Goodreads reviews, so do check that out if you want to find out a little bit more about what I thought. And as I said, on my channel, I do have wrap-ups which include a lot of these books and reading vlogs for some of them. So do check that out if you want to hear a little bit more in depth, and me remembering the names of some of the characters would probably be good. So you can go and have a read of that. I will also have a link in the description to my planning YouTube channel, which is where the other half of my VLOGMAS content is sitting, and as well as my Instagram, peace.love.plan, which I share between my planning and my book content. Otherwise, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.